Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Down in the Country podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Reed, and today we are joined with another up and coming country music artist, Reed Kirkwood. Reed, thank you so much for your time today.
No, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
And I'm very curious about how you describe yourself. So, on your website, you say that you're brewed in upstate New York, bottled in Nashville, and drunk in New England. What does that mean to you, and how has it shaped you in becoming a country music singer?
That might be my biggest accomplishment as an artist is coming up with that. Um, so, I mean, I always I really hate talking about myself. So, like, coming up with like a full bio is not something that I'm interested in. But I also always like find it really fun when other artists just have like short, witty little quips as their bios, and it keeps things a little like mysterious, a little playful. And at the same time, I did want to provide some sort of background. So I think it's a nice short way of like kind of like condensing my journey as a human being, where I was raised in upstate New York. I spent some time in Nashville, which is really where I honed my songwriting craft. And then now I live in the Boston area. So I thought it was a nice fun way to portray that.
Awesome. And then your two songs, so we'll play a clip of each of them. The Spot and Let Me Leave You. I mean, all your songs are great, but those are the two that really spoke to the most to me personally as a listener. We're going to be playing a 30-second clip of The Spot first, just so that people can know you more and have an understanding of your musical style.
Sweet.
Outskirts of town where you light up on fire and you dance around. It's a sandy beach that nobody knows, skinny dipping under the moonshine glow. It's a cabin way out back in the woods where you spend the night because you know you should. It's a 30-yard rush with a case of beer on a post-game field because the cops are here. Everybody's got that spot they need up with a summer night feeling heat up.
All right, that was a little longer than the 30 seconds. I'm like, when you get so into a song, I'm like, I gotta play like 5 more seconds.
You gotta wait till you get the
Yeah, and then I'm gonna play another clip of another song you wrote, "Let Me Leave You."
There's an indent in my bed from when you left, and I bet you can't forget all those nights we never slept, cause we were fireworks till we crashed and burned, and now you're gone. You're not leaving me that easily, so let me leave you with something to remember me by, like every memory that's burned into the back of your mind.
Now, I gotta say, I do love kind of how that acoustic guitar kind of comes into play, and then that strumming pattern for that song too.
Yeah.
Kind of really adds to the effect of the entire song.
Yeah, that was a really fun song to record. Mostly because it was very different from some of the other ones that I've recorded. But yeah, that one was fun because it's such a building song throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
I was really happy with the way it came out.
Yeah. I mean, it was also great to listen to too, as well. So.
Good. That is my aim. That is my aim.
And it's interesting. So in each of those clips, each of those songs kind of had their own identity, had their own story. Kind of, they each have a part of you as an artist, and they also emit different feelings from the listener. And how was writing both of those songs like? How did it allow you to grow and establish your country music identity?
Yeah. Well, first off, I always like to try new things and like try to be, fairly dynamic as an artist and a songwriter. So, I like feel good country anthems. I like, some heartbreak, some heartbreak mid-tempo songs. so I really like to take a stab at all the different vibes, and like approaching them differently. I think I approach songs like that differently. Certainly with songs like "Let Me Leave You," like there's a level of vulnerability that you get with yourself or with co-writers, to really draw out like the emotions there. And "Let Me Leave You," it's like whether you're talking about like an ex, and whether you're talking about an ex or a friend or just somebody that did you wrong, it's like that there's always going to be a piece of you with them too. It's like that's a type of vulnerability that you really have to like dig deep to find. Whereas songs like "The Spot," like it's a feel good anthem. It's about living in the moment. I'll be honest, like the funny thing is like "The Spot" is probably one of my most like personal songs, because pretty much every lyric in that song is lifted straight from my experience growing up in upstate New York. But at the same time, it's just you can kind of like roll with like what are the fun times, the fun memories that you have, who are you with, and things like that. So I do find it's a different approach to writing a different song. But certainly like when I go to write a song, it's like, what mood am I in? What is striking me? What is weighing on me that I need to write about? And trying to capture that. But as I said, going back to like, I don't want to write the same song over and over again. So really trying to find like new, whether it's new melodies, new vibes, new tempos, everything like that, to just try to like explore the full sonic spectrum. That's really important to me. It's like just writing the same kind of thing over and over again is something that I it's something that I really try to make sure that each song is unique.
And yeah, because listening to both of those, it sounded like by just listening to it, that each of them kind of had their own creative process to the song.
Yeah, very, very much so. So I mean, so all the songs I've released so far, I produce at home. I do all of the production, all of the performance right here in my home studio. And I mean, the approach for them is was definitely different. Like one of the nice things about being able to produce my own songs is like I can take time with some of them. I can learn how to play a new instrument to be able to record it. So like on "Let Me Leave You," I had never played lap steel guitar before, but I was like, I feel like this needs some sort of like haunting slide, lap steel kind of sound. And thankfully my friend had an old lap steel that he didn't want anymore. And so you can see it on the rack on the end over there. But I was like, I don't know, let me take the time to try to figure out how to play this thing enough to put it in a song. Whereas "The Spot," "The Spot's" a song that I've had for a number of years, and I played it out at a bunch of writers' rounds, a bunch of open mics. Like I kind of knew that song would hit. And so like that one was much more straightforward in terms of like, I kind of know, what I want to do with this song. It's an upbeat summer anthem. So I got to make sure the chorus is big. And so like, I kind of had a good idea there. Whereas "Let Me Leave You" is really a journey. I kind of like created the song, and then, I sent it to my dad for feedback, and he was like, "What if you do this?" I was like, "All right, cool. Let me strip it back and try again." So like, that's kind of the nice thing about doing it yourself is like, you can press undo a few times and like do something new, try different things, which is really fun.
Yeah. And, for our viewers, Reed is also the culprit behind the Spotify playlist that he curated, the best new country artists too as well. And I'm actually very thankful to you on a personal level, Reed, because you've helped me discover and expanded my horizons of all of these great artists that are out there. And it's amazing what the internet can really showcase to people.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for listening to that playlist. It's a playlist that I really like. I really just, was curating for myself up until earlier this year, where, honestly, I'm more of a fan than a musician. I like to consider myself like I love music. I love discovering new artists, and I would always try to find like what are the amazing songs from all of these small artists that no one's ever heard of. So I actually like try to hunt them down every single week, and And since I started sharing the playlist in January, just as like, oh, like I need to tell someone about these awesome artists that I'm discovering.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just started organically getting followers. And honestly, now it's a very much a passion project, a labor of love of like, yeah, I just, I listen to as much new music every single week as I can and try to highlight the ones that I really love. But it's just amazing, it's amazing to see how many super talented artists there are out there, like in the country space, that are approaching different styles, whether it's like infusing EDM into their music or doing more traditional country or kind of like, mainstream pop country. And there's just so many talented artists.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love to be able to share that. And, when I share it on socials, like the artists, artists love it. And if I can help them find a new listener, then mission accomplished there.
Yeah. Well, you helped me find a lot of really good artists. So
good. I'm glad to hear. If you hear of any, please send them along too.
Yeah. Well, and as I got like a quarter to a half of the way through the playlist. I'm like, I'm almost done. And then I see Reed adds like 25,000 more, and I'm like, damn it. Like,
yeah. The funny thing is, like, as I continue to do this and like discover more artists and like follow them on Spotify and Instagram, I just like I get that much more incoming music now every single week in my release radar on Spotify that like there's some weeks where I'm like, I think I listened to more of the new music that came out than actually listened to the playlist that I made, when like my entire intent of the playlist is like, this is my playlist like that I just put on repeat during the week. But yeah, I mean, like it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. And on a serious note, like, what do you want people to take away from that Spotify playlist that you're curated? Like, what is the listening experience that you really want them to come away with?
Yeah, like, I kind of mentioned this, like one of the things that really inspires me as an artist is just seeing, hearing amazing music from all of these artists that you've never heard of. I mean, like, certainly, growing up, I was listening to terrestrial radio and things like that. Like, yeah, you kind of knew all the artists that were on the radio, but with the internet, like, it's much easier to get your music out there. And there's so many amazing, talented artists that, before the internet, you probably would have never heard unless you saw them in your local coffee shop. And, I think, like, as a songwriter, and especially being in Nashville for a while, like, one of the things that breaks my heart is like hearing all of the amazing songs that get written and probably never get cut. And then there's also all of these amazing artists that, like, they do cut their own songs, or like they are cutting these songs and they're out there, they're amazing. And so I think being able to highlight some of those amazing talents is something that inspires me every single week. Like, I'll discover an artist and be like, that's super awesome. Like, how can I incorporate that sound into my next song? So it's just nice to be able to inspire, like, to be inspired by all that. And I hope that for other artists that I'm including on the playlist, like, it's fun seeing, like, sometimes their friends, or like one of them will reach out to me because they'll be like, hey, this, I saw that you put a song on for my friend, like, would you consider mine? Like, it's kind of become like a little bit of like a networking community tool as well. And so, I think it's nice to be able to represent that, because I think, like, especially for country, like, community is such a strong quality. Both in Nashville, the songwriting community, but you can even feel that extending out to, like, folks that don't live in Nashville. So I like to be like, a little bit of an element of the community there. And I hope that there's just listeners out there that are, discovering some amazing artists and figuring out where they can go see them at shows. So.
Mm-hmm. And, it seems like that the internet too, as well, has just made it so much easier to go independent as well.
Yeah. I mean, like, it certainly has opened up a lot of different opportunities for what a musician wants to be, and, and how they identify as a musician. Like, yeah, I mean, before the internet, certainly, like, yeah, to be able to afford to record a CD at a recording studio and, get your album in Best Buy or in Barnes and Noble, like, yeah, you kind of needed to sign with a label and they'd be that marketing and distribution partner. But with the internet, yeah, certainly it's become a lot more affordable to distribute your music. There have been amazing new tools in like software and music production that make it easier to produce your own music as well. And also like and also to be able to network and find producers to help bring your musical ideas to life. So, it certainly has opened up a lot of doors. And I think there's just a lot more music out there, which, has its pluses and minuses, but like, it also means that artists can, they don't have to take the traditional route of like trying to get a record deal. There are other opportunities that, I see there's artists that are not based in Nashville that are pursuing country and doing doing an amazing job. And, and I'll say for me, like, that traditional route is not something that's been, of interest to me. So like being able to access all these tools, record my own music in my own home studio is something that you couldn't do 20 years ago. That's, it's really opened up doors to kind of like be the musician, be the artist that you want to, and not necessarily have to follow like a traditional path.
Well, and you brought up an interesting point about a lot of like these songs that are independently produced. Like and I don't have, a musical ear per se. Like I don't sing or play an instrument, but I can't tell the difference whether I can never tell the difference between a song that's recorded in a studio, a traditional studio, versus one that's just recorded on a computer. Like it's amazing to me. Like, like I can't tell a difference.
Yeah. I mean, like it is amazing. I mean, certainly like, also with, there's so many like drum samples and so many different sounds you can access at home. And like, it certainly has opened up a lot of doors. And like, I have friends in Nashville that, produce music, and yeah, they have their like their bedroom studio that like, they invite friends over and record amazing music, because they've learned the skills and how to use all of these tools that, you don't necessarily need to spend thousands of dollars going to a professional studio. That said, there are amazing, talented session musicians, and there are definitely there's a caliber of, mix engineers and producers that certainly like, that are utilizing real studios. And there's certainly other aspects of that like, if you want to record, like, what is the sound of like Abbey Road Studios? Like, yeah, there's certainly things that you can't replicate at home, but there's a lot that you can do at home. So it's, again, like, it's just created a lot more opportunities. There's always going to be that space for like professional recording studios. There's always going to be that, there's always going to be that role that record labels can play. But yeah, there's just a lot more different paths, a lot more different tools. And yeah, it's amazing, like the quality of music people can make, without stepping foot in a studio.
Yeah, no, it's just amazing kind of, what, the talents that are out there that, that should be discovered. And I'm totally on board with you on that. So I kind of want to change gears here for a second. So the podcast, yes, the music is important, but kind of, how I like to look at it is without the human, you can't really have the music. So I'm curious, like, how is your New England roots? How have they shaped you, not only as a country music songwriter, but as a human being?
That's an interesting one. I'll say, a couple of things that quickly come to mind. I'll say, like, my first, like, when I was first, beginning to network and like, find who is this community of country artists. There was actually a group in the Boston area that was called New England to Nashville. It was run by this guy Matt Casey, and it was almost like an extension of Nashville. It was like this community of country artists, country songwriters in the Boston area that, you could network with, you could co-write with, play gigs with, which was this kind of pocket of country music in a city that is not very, not prevalently known as a country music hub. And so that was really nice, like finding that. And I also have a bunch of friends from that group that like have moved to Nashville, you know, are still in Nashville. So when also when I moved to Nashville, like, you know, it's like kind of had like a community there already, which was nice. But the other thing that I thought, you know, that I find really, you know, inspiring about New England in general as a musician is when I first moved to the Boston area, it's like, you know, there weren't a ton of country concerts coming through. And I went to see Kenny Chesney at Gillette Stadium.
You see my t-shirt?
Yeah, that's right.
He came to DC recently, and I was like, I got to get this orange. I got to get this orange t-shirt. I want to look cool, you know, Reed. Like, it's all about looking cool.
Yeah. Oh man, there's nothing like a good Kenny Chesney concert. But anyways, yeah, he came to, you know, he's had a habit of coming to Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play, and you know, in an area of the country where, like, you know, especially around Boston, like, yeah, there weren't a ton of country concerts initially. Like now there's a bunch more that tour through the area. But like, certainly, like, you don't think of like Boston as like, yeah, there's probably a lot of country fans there. But then going to see Kenny Chesney the first time I went at Gillette Stadium and seeing the tens of thousands of country fans that are, you know, from Boston, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, that would like congregate there. And that to me was like, country fans are out there and they're all over. They just need reasons to come out sometimes. And I think like, I think country music in New England and Boston is probably exploded over the past decade or so. But like, that was something where I was like, I didn't know these country fans existed in the, you didn't see them. And then they would show up for Kenny Chesney. Now there's a bunch more concerts that they can show up to in the country space. But like that was something I was like, there is a home for country music here, and anywhere in the U.S. There's definitely those fans are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely agree. Like, when I was at when I saw Kenny in DC, I was like, wow, there's so many people that are big country music fans in Washington. Like, it's insane.
Yeah. And then like also just thinking about like thematically, like one of the things that when it comes to country music, there's certainly like a lot of cliche themes around like dirt roads and trucks and things like that. And obviously, like I live near the Boston area. There's not a whole lot of dirt roads around here. But all around New England, upstate New York, where I'm from, like, it's not the South, but like a lot of the lyrics resonate with me. Like, I grew up in a town in upstate New York where it's like, it wasn't the South, but like, yeah, there were dirt roads, there were tons of farms, there were more cows than people in my town. There were a lot of trucks. So like I think that's one of the things that like, that did resonate for me, like with country music, is like, I didn't grow up listening to country music, but when I discovered country music, I was like, yeah, I mean, this is all around the country. This is in Vermont. This is in Maine. This is upstate New York. This is Nebraska. I mean, those themes are all around the country, and
Mm-hmm.
I think like, especially, coming back to New England, like, yeah, like you go up to Maine, like there's a lot of dirt roads in Maine. But yeah, so I mean, like I think that's a lot of the lyrical themes are always based around the South, but like it's very representative of anywhere in the U.S. And like I think New England for me in particular, like I love New England, and so it's also nice to nice when country artists sing songs about New England too. Like, I mean, Kenny Chesney has a song about a girl from Boston, so like I like to think it's an important part of the country, and definitely home for me.
Yeah, no, it's it's interesting to kind of, you brought up an interesting point about how it's not just about beer and trucks and
it's a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit about that. I'm not. It's not all. I mean, it's much more. Just the older I've gotten, I try and like, like read the lyrics and kind of be like, okay, like what is this song actually about? Like, why did the artist like structure this song this way? Like, does it have something to do with the message that they're trying to get across? And, because if you're in like if you're working out or if you're like angry or sad, you don't want to like you just want to listen to the melody that resonates with what you're feeling at that particular point in time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with country music, like, I think, something that drew me to it very quickly when I started listening was like, it's such an, like, writing in country music is so artful and so intentional. Like, with every line, there's so much imagery. It really, like, it tells a story. And I've certainly, like, I grew up listening to a lot of non-country music that, like, yeah, there's a story there, but like it doesn't, it's not quite as deep. There's not quite as much imagery, and that's what I think, like, with country music is like, there's so much thought that goes into, like, each word, the order, what you talk about in the first verse, the chorus, this, the second verse. It's so intentional in terms of like how everybody writes their songs and that's what I love. Like, I was not, like, growing up, I didn't listen to lyrics a ton, but once I started listening to country music, like I started paying attention to lyrics for the first time, because they do really mean something. And like in country music, yeah, there's a lot of songs about heartbreak. There's a lot of songs about beer and trucks, but also the way that people write about those things evolves. They are always finding new and unique ways to talk about those things, different new metaphors, and that's what especially going back to the playlist and like listening to all of these artists write amazing songs, hearing how many different unique perspectives there can be on a basic human emotion, is very inspiring.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. And my last question for you is, it's a two-part question. So how does Reed Kirkwood want to contribute to not only the genre of country music, but kind of the idea that you've been discussing in this podcast interview is kind of the community of country music too, as well?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think first and foremost, I would love to contribute a few good songs that some people enjoy. I think that would be the first thing. If there's a song that I have that resonates with anyone, that's certainly going to be meaningful to me. Especially if it's something that that really connects with someone, and whether it gets them through a tough time or like it's their soundtrack on the lake, whatever it might be. That's certainly, I think, like, yeah, would love to contribute that to music. I think outside of that, like, certainly any way that I can think, any way that I can, lift other artists up as well is like something that, like, I absolutely, want to be able to contribute to the country community. And as you noted, like, yeah, it's a community. There's so many songwriters, producers, recording artists. There are so many amazing talents that are, trying to create a career in music, start a career, or, finding their identity as a musician. And like, anything I can do to like help them find new listeners, or provide feedback on songs, like whatever it is, the more I can help other artists, I think like that truly makes me feel good. Because going back to it, is like, yeah, I am an artist, but honestly, like, I'm a bigger fan than an artist. So like anything I can do to help lift up other artists is always exciting and makes me feel good.
Awesome. No, that's great to hear. And Reed, where can people find more about you? Listening to your music, or if they're interested in reading more about you as a person?
Yeah. So you can find my music on all the streaming platforms, on iTunes, on Spotify, on Apple Music. So I'm all over. If you want to read about me, we kind of talked about earlier the my short bio of brewed in upstate New York, bottled in Nashville, drunk in New England. That's about it. If you want to know more about me, feel free to reach out. You can find me on Instagram, but yeah, feel free to reach out if you want to know what I'm drinking in New England.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Reed, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Awesome. And don't forget, we'll down in the country, YouTube channel, same as the podcast, where episodes will be posted. This is Dylan Reed signing off.